Hi everybody, this is Matthew Poes with Poes Acoustics, and in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about seating distance and how we optimize it, and I'm also going to talk about something that I did that not everybody does or has the flexibility to do, but it was something that, again, this is kind of more a lab room than a typical theater, and I wanted to be able to play with this. So everything was designed in a way where I could potentially move the chairs forward and back in order to get better sound and play around with that. And not just better sound, but change the viewing angle and kind of change the perception. So when the room was originally set up, I pushed the rear seats up against the wall. It's a big no-no, I know that. You're not supposed to do that. It's not good for sound. But the room was too short for 2 rows of seats, optimally set up. The room is not even a full 20 feet long. It's like, I think after all the walls went up and everything, it's not even a full 19 feet long. I think it's just under 19 feet. And so when you get everything where it's supposed to be optimal for the main listening position, there really isn't room for the rear seats to be pushed forward at all. So they're right up against the rear wall. And then I had the front row kind of in the optimal position. But I originally had a different idea for how I was going to place things. And it would have had and so I put the surround speakers in that original placement. And then when I was doing it, what I realized was that the surround speakers were like maybe exactly 90 degrees or even 85 degrees, which was not perfectly optimal. They were a little farther forward than I wanted them to be. And I didn't know if it mattered. It shouldn't have, because there's this zone of confusion, so it shouldn't matter. But I was kind of curious. But also, the viewing angle was actually pretty good. So the viewing angle was about 45 degrees in the main listening position, but then that did make it a little bit small for the rear position. Plus, like I said, it's up against the wall, and I thought, I have plenty of space. I can push everything forward. It'll have a closer listening distance, which maybe isn't optimal, but maybe it is. Maybe it's better, so let's try it. That moves the side surrounds back more. That moves the rear seats off the wall. So I moved everything 2 feet forward. And, well, not quite, 20 inches. That was, I think, as much as I was able to do for now. 20 inches forward gives me about a 50-degree viewing angle at the main chairs. The screen becomes visually a larger field of view because of that, of course. That's what that means. And it takes up more of your space. The rear seats are off the wall now by that same 20 inches, which means that there's some distance between your head and the back. There's more distance between the rear speakers for those rear listeners. As I said, the side surrounds are kind of in a more optimal position. And I got to be honest with you, I've listened to a little bit of music in surround sound. I have not watched a movie like this yet, but that was not the point of the video. I will do that, and I should probably do a follow-up about, yeah, it was amazing, or it didn't make any difference at all. But in general, when you're making these decisions, it is worth thinking about that. I think that folks often are, again, kind of focused on either like perfect to the angle measurement or convenience without thinking about why those standards exist. And so when you're doing it, there's, I think, a balancing act. And part of engineering, actually, would be figuring out the most optimal, elegant solution to the situation. It's not always true, but in many cases, a theater's dimensions are fixed. There's an outside dimension that you just can't go any more than. In the case of my theater, I could not possibly make this theater any longer than it is. I mean, we custom built the house, but there were physical restrictions that would have made it very difficult to go larger, and the cost would have gone up substantially just to add a couple of feet. Didn't make any sense. The width was fixed. There was actually no condition under which this theater could be made any wider, and the reason for that is that the house is basically composed of 2 boxes next to each other. It's not literal. This is not like a what do they call them, shipping container house, but it is kind of a similar concept to the shipping container house of like modules stuck together. This is all stick built and everything. There are no modules, but the way it was constructed involved 2 identically sized rectangles offset from each other, kind of connected in a middle area. The theater sits over one of those, and it could not physically extend over the other because it would have created an overhang. The overhang would have created construction problems that would have had to have been engineered out, and we would have had too much coverage on the property. So I couldn't do that. So the theater is as wide as it can be, and it's as long as it can be. So then the issue becomes, what do you do for seating? Well, realistically, the optimal thing to have done would have been to have just 3 seats. And that would have been it. But I didn't want 3 seats. I wanted 6 seats because I wanted guests to be able to come. And I thought, as many of you probably do too, Okay, so 3 of those seats are going to suck. I mean, realistically, only one of them is really good. The rest of them have compromises. That's a reality in any theater, and it's much more of a reality in smaller theaters like this one. So I have 6 seats in a modest to small room that cannot really fully support 6 seats properly, but I did it anyway. And now I'm playing around with things to see if I can get more optimization. Like I said, pushing the seats forward is one of the things you can do. Or like I said, I could have gotten rid of the back row, but I didn't want to do that. And so when you guys are designing your rooms and you're thinking about this stuff, as I said, you want to think about a balancing act between what gets you the best viewing angle, what gets you the best distance between the speakers for optimal sound. But also, as an example, when you move the seats forward, there are some benefits to the center seat, but things get worse for the side seats because now you're closer, especially because of their width. Now you're closer to the speaker, the angle errors go up. So the angle errors, even if we cross-fired the speakers, and these do have very good directivity, but they're not what I would call like a constant directivity speaker in that they don't have narrow enough dispersion for that. Even if they did, those seats would be compromised. So in my particular room, the left and the right seat is basically sitting in front of the left and the right speaker because of the limits of the room. And so as you move them forward, you're getting closer to one of those speakers. They're going to dominate what you hear. So I've moved them forward. I think that it improves things on the back row. It improves things in the center seat. I haven't had a chance to play around with the side seats. I suspect it's going to make those worse. And I may end up pushing everything back again. So we'll have to see. But for now, I'm trying this out. And if you guys do have the ability to move your seats around, you may want to try doing that, even if aesthetically it kind of messes things up, because you might get a performance improvement. Thanks for watching.